Loneliness in this generation. Episode 1. Always online, never held. In Johannesburg, Thandi's life looked like something people wanted. Her Instagram was a highlight reel of perfection. Brunch pictures, mirror selfies, rooftop parties, soft filters, and carefully curated captions like, "Peaceful mind, soft life only." She had over 5,000 followers, a growing audience, and people constantly reacting to her stories. But none of that followed her into the night, because at 11:59 p.m., when the world went quiet, Thandi's room became painfully loud. No laughter, no company, no voice saying her name in a warm way. Just her phone lighting up her face like a fake window to connection. She would scroll through messages she never replied to, reply to comments, laugh at memes, and still feel like something was missing. One night, she whispered to herself, "If so many people see me, why does nobody feel close?" And that was the beginning of her realization. Being watched is not the same as being known. Episode 2, the group chat that never shows up. Thandi had 3 main group chats: the sisters, weekend plans, and we outside. On the surface, they were active every day. Messages flying back and forth, jokes, voice notes, TikTok links, birthday plans, gossip, everything that made it feel like she had a solid circle. But loneliness in this generation is not about lack of messages, it is about lack of presence. When Thandi stopped replying for 2 days because she wasn't mentally okay, nobody noticed immediately. When she finally returned and said, "I've been a bit low," the response was, hope you're okay, Shah. Life is crazy, I get you." Anyways, did you see that video? Then the conversation moved on. No one called, no one checked properly, no one stayed in the emotional space with her. That night, she sat on her bed and stared at the group chats. All active, all loud, all empty. And she realized something painful. She wasn't part of a circle. She was part of noise. Episode 3, Lagos Night's Empty Mind. In Lagos, David was the definition of always outside. He knew all the lounges, all the beach spots, all the popular DJs, all the influencers. If something was happening in the city, David was somehow there. His life looked like movement, constantly busy, constantly surrounded, constantly lit. But inside, he was exhausted in a way he could not explain. Because every night followed the same pattern: loud music, forced laughter, short conversations, phone scrolling, taxi ride home, silence. The silence always hit hardest. He would sit in the back seat of a cab, watching streetlights pass, surrounded by noise earlier, now suddenly alone with his thoughts. And the thoughts were always the same. Why do I still feel lonely after being around so many people? One night, he tried to distract himself with more messages, more scrolling, more plans for the next outing. But even distraction has limits, because loneliness doesn't disappear in crowds. It just hides until you're alone again. Episode 4, Situationship Syndrome. David was talking to someone, not officially dating, not strangers, just something in between, what this generation calls vibes. They texted daily, sent memes, shared music, spoke every night before sleeping. On the surface, it looked like connection, but emotionally, it was thin. When David said, "I miss you," she replied with a sticker. When she said, "I feel off today," he said, "You'll be fine. Don't stress." Neither of them were wrong, but neither of them were truly present either. That's the modern trap. People are available, but not emotionally available. One night, David realized he knew her routine, her favorite emojis, her online patterns, but not her fears, not her real pain, not her deeper self. And she didn't know his either. They were connected, but not close. Episode 5, the UK Silence. In London, Ifuma lived a life many people admired from the outside. She had moved abroad, had a stable job, and looked like she was doing well. But every shift ended the same way. She would clock out from work, ride the train home, unlock her flat, step inside, and be greeted by silence. Not peaceful silence, heavy silence, the kind that sits on your chest. She would cook small meals, eat alone, wash up alone, and sit on her bed scrolling through her phone. Not because she was bored, but because it was the only thing making her feel like she wasn't completely isolated. Sometimes she would video call family in Abuja, but even those calls felt rushed. Everyone busy, everyone distracted, everyone present physically but not emotionally. After one short call, she sat quietly and thought, I left home for a better life, but I didn't expect it to be this quiet. Episode 6, Being Known Online, Forgotten Offline. Thandi was popular online, David was socially active, Ifoma was respected professionally, but all three shared the same invisible struggle. They were known, but not known deeply. Thandi got hundreds of likes, but no one to sit with her when she felt low. David had endless contacts, but no one he could call at 2 a.m. and say, I'm not okay. Ifeoma had colleagues and family responsibilities, but no emotional space where she could just exist without being strong. This generation is full of visibility, but lacking intimacy. Episode 7, The Friend Who Only Comes When Needed. Thandi noticed something painful. She was always the one people reached out to. The therapist friend, the strong one, the understanding one. People came to her when they were sad, confused, or heartbroken, and she gave her full presence every time. But when she needed someone, replies were delayed, calls were missed, energy was low, not out of hatred, just out of imbalance. And slowly she understood. Some relationships are not mutual, they are emotional service systems. Episode 8, The Party That Felt Empty. At a party in Johannesburg, Thandi laughed loudly with everyone. Music was loud, phones were out, pictures were taken, stories were posted. But in between all the noise, she felt it again, that quiet emptiness. She looked around and realized something strange. Everyone was together, but no one was truly with each other. People were recording moments instead of living them, smiling for content instead of connection. And she felt invisible in the middle of attention. Episode 9, The Car Confession. One night, David sat alone in his car after an event in Lagos. The music had stopped. His phone was still buzzing. His body was tired, but emotionally, he was empty. He whispered into the silence, I talk to people every day, but nobody really knows me. And for the first time, he didn't laugh it off. Because it wasn't funny anymore, it was real. Episode 10, The Realization. Ifoma eventually started therapy in London. During one session, she was asked, when was the last time you felt emotionally held? She paused and couldn't answer because she realized she had become so used to being strong, useful, and available that no one had ever stopped to hold her emotionally in return. Episode 11, What Loneliness Really Is. They all learn separately. Loneliness is not about being alone. It is about feeling unseen while surrounded. It is being in conversations but not connection. It is having contacts but not closeness. It is laughing in public but breaking in private. Episode 12, Choosing Real Connection. Slowly, things began to change. Thandi reduced her online noise and started focusing on a few real friendships. David became more intentional about who he gave his time to. Ifeoma started speaking up about how she felt instead of always pretending. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Episode 13, Small Circles, Deep Bonds. They all learned the same lesson. It is better to have a few people who truly see you than hundreds who only notice you when you're entertaining. They started valuing conversations that had depth instead of volume, silence that felt safe instead of silence that felt empty. Episode 14, The New Normal. Thandi sat one evening in Johannesburg without posting anything. David stayed home instead of going out. Ifeoma turned off her phone for a few hours in London, and for the first time, none of them felt the pressure to perform connection. Just be in it. Episode 15, The Truth About This Generation. Loneliness today is not loud, It is quiet. It hides in group chats, parties, DMs, and video calls. And one day, everyone realizes the same truth. Being surrounded by people doesn't mean you are connected to them. Lessons from the story. 1. Digital connection is not emotional connection. 2. Crowds can still feel empty. 3. Most people are surrounded but not understood. 4. Real relationships require presence, not just messages. 5. Quality of connection matters more than quantity of contacts.